a month ago, I was on a trip with my friend Zach to Bangkok, and we came across this crazy secondhand vintage camera store where we kind of wandered in and then explored a little bit and then found some crazy stuff. And back then, I recently just got my Ilios, yeah, that's it, the Ilios 44 to 58 millimeters, which is one of the most famous vintage lenses. But I wanted to pick up a few more, so I found this guy, which is the Canon FD 28mm, and this macro lens from Tamron, which is a 35 to 80mm macro lens, which is crazy. Like, look at this guy. It's it was a crazy experience to find these lenses there. We almost paid nothing for it. So I decided to make this video, and I decided to tell you guys why you need vintage lenses with your gear. I actually got one more, so I got 3 lenses, but it turned out they actually misread ones, and instead of being a Canon FD mount, it was a Canon R mount, which is a very hard to find adapter lens. So I just kind of put it back there on my shelf, and I'm gonna keep that as a, you know, just piece of gear on the shelf, so why not? But why do you need vintage lenses? I decided to make this video because vintage lenses I find that are, first of all, very cool to work with. That most of them are manual. Yes, you gotta learn manual focus, but they just have a very different, very interesting look. And especially in filmmaking, we don't want perfection like photography. We want everything to be very characteristic, very different. And so I really think that everyone should have one of these in their gear. Before we get right into the video, if you're new here, my name is Luca. I'm a filmmaker and I'm based here in Bali, Indonesia. So if you find any of this interesting, please leave a like and subscribe down below. Fun fact, when I actually got all of these lenses in this camera shop, I pretty much had no idea what I was picking up. I actually thought both of these lenses weren't really working because I couldn't see if the aperture was clicking or not, and I couldn't see if the focus was working because I didn't have the adapter for it back then. I just had to order one. So yeah, I just really like random focal lengths, and 28 is a very interesting one, and also 35 to 80 macro lens. It's also a very interesting one. So yeah, let's start right off the first one. And funny enough, when I actually got home, I didn't understand how to click the adapter onto the lens. I actually thought that the lens was kind of broken because I couldn't figure out how to click it, but then I figured out how to do it, and yeah, now I know. Anyways, let's start from the 28mm from Canon. This is a Canon FD lens. It's one of the most famous Canon lens. There's a whole Canon FD set. There is, I believe, a 1.8 version of all of these lenses, but this is a 2.8. If you want a sharper one, maybe get the 1.8. But this lens was produced in 1987, so it is about 36 years old. And it looks great. It's mostly, I guess, a mix of plastic and glass because it's super light, almost weighs nothing. But everything looks good, and this one is like butter smooth. Aperture feels amazing. It's in great condition. The glass is perfect, and everything I pointed this lens at, it just had a very nice characteristic that I really love about vintage lenses. The texture, the color straight out of it, the bokeh, everything just looks very interesting compared to like a normal, like, you know, photography lens. So the reason why I actually really like vintage lenses is the look, the feel, because these lenses are made such a long time ago. The glass it was used and the coating on the glass just gives this interesting look. So yeah, I guess that's the main thing about vintage lenses, and this specifically I'm a big fan of, and it's super light, so we'll definitely leave in my camera bag for, you know, whenever I go on trips or something and I want some cool shots. They're all, as I said, manual focus lenses, but it is what it is. They're big enough to fit my small rig mini follow focus, so if I'm planning to use this on a shoot, I'll just bring the follow focus and I can just, you know, focus while I'm on the go. So yeah, all of these things on top, as you can see, are just step-up rings to fit my mist filter and my ND filters, so I can get shots outside. Moving on to the Tamron 35 to 80 millimeter. So when I actually got this lens, it had like a filter on top of it. I think it was a UV filter, and I couldn't get it off, so I had to break the filter and then kind of like take it out, because it just wasn't working properly. It wasn't, you know, focusing on stuff. And still now I probably need to get this a bit of oil or something, because it's very kind of hard to focus and make some weird noise as well. But once you focus with it, it's great. It's a 2x conversion macro, which means that you can go pretty close with it. And the minimum focus I think is 28 centimeters, which is nothing. It's like this much. And it's a great lens overall. I tried it both in macro and as well as a normal, you know, 80 millimeter or 35 millimeter lens, and it just looks very good. There's a few things about this lens that, you know, you can see that it's old. It's all scratched up, but you know, that's a vintage lens. That's what you get out of it. And yeah, it's interesting. It gives a different feel to your films, different feels to your shots. And fun fact, this one lens, I actually got it from, so there was two shops where we went in Bangkok. One was like a very nice, taken care of, and that's where I got this lens, and I paid about, I think, $20 for it. And that's also where I got like a Super 8 millimeter from my girlfriend, which I think was about the same price. And then the shop next to it, it was literally trash, like just lenses like thrown up there. So I wasn't expecting much for it. It was actually 100 baht per kilo in this shop, which is about $3 or $4 US for 1 kilo of camera gear, whatever you find in the shop, which was crazy. But everything looked trash, and I picked up this lens because I wanted to try it, and it turns out it actually works. So that's a steal. Also, I kind of always wanted a macro lens, but I don't want to invest that much money into a lens that I'm gonna use 1 or 2 times here and there, so I don't think it's worth it. And that's why I was stoked that I picked up this, guys, because it looks damn good and it does the job. When I started filmmaking, I actually really fell in love with the artistic side of things. I fell in love with coming up with ideas, and I fell in love with the whole art behind filmmaking. Not just gear and shooting the best, most perfect video ever. It was always about art and just creating something new. And this is why I really think everyone should have vintage lenses, just because it helps you in the creative process to create something different, to create something unique with a piece of gear that it's literally from 30 or 40 years ago, which is mind-blowing that it still works today. And on top of that, you know, whenever we make videos, whenever we take photos, we all edit them, we all make them feel like it's not reality, we all add colors, we all edit in different ways, and this is just a different step for me to take that helps the creativity, helps the purpose, and helps telling a better story. So I really think that if you have a secondhand market or something, or maybe just get it off eBay or something, just spend a few bucks, invest in a few of these vintage lenses, up to you which one you go for, and just test it out. It might spark something in your brain and you might want to make a film out of it. I don't know. To me, it's just something that really helped my creativity, and I'm definitely going to invest in more. I have a list on my laptop of all the lenses vintage that I want to get. So yeah, that was the point I wanted to make. And yeah, look at this. Isn't that cool? I don't know if you can see it, but it's cool, right? So yeah, that's all for today's videos, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe, and all those things as always. Yeah.